Well, good afternoon, everyone. Very glad we're able to meet remotely today. My name is Remy Kendall. I'm the president of the Orange County branch. We're excited about the presentation within the Orange County Transportation Authority. We get started. Next slide, Jason. I always like to break the ice when we start a meeting, and whenever I hear the concept of a streetcar and then the other concept of active transportation, the first thought that comes to mind is my childhood in Paris. And the fact that I always had to sprint or chase every bus, every tramway, every train to make it on time. So it was not necessarily the fact that I would ride my bike. It was really to catch the right train on time. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. And as we move on to the next slide, one aspect that we are introducing to our branch Luncheon is a outstanding board member recognition of the month. And Juliette, it's you this time. Juliette's been with us for over five, or if not 6 years as our marketing co-chairs, and I cannot thank her enough for all the work she's done over the years. She's all over the place. She's very involved with many organizations, but as marketing chair, she has essentially been able to sustain the organic growth and financial growth of our branch for several years. So Juliette, I wanted to thank you for that. We're still waiting for our shots, but that being said, I'd like to introduce officially our board. Myself, Remy Kendall with yourselves. We have Clint on the call today. Clint Isa with Diaz Yeoman, past president. Jen Marks with Siemens as the president-elect. Regina Hugh, she is with the city of Yorba Linda, and she's our new secretary. And Nestor Godinez with SLR Engineers is our treasurer. We're very glad that Clay Walker and Miriam Takla, our co-chairs for the Construction Institute, were able to pull this event together. The other Technical Institute chairs are Jenny Robinet with PACE, Ali Bastani with GMU, then Jason for the Structural Institute with MSEA, Alahesh T with Earth Mechanics, and then we have Greg Sebourne, who represents the UESI Institute. I'd like to thank all of our annual sponsors, without which we would not be able to host these events and distribute scholarships throughout the year. So a big thank you to Parsons, who has been a consistent platinum sponsor to our events. We have several silver sponsors: HNTB, WSP, CWE, Diaz Yeoman. Thank you, guys. And Parsons again. Multiple gold sponsors: AECOM, CNC, Jacobs, Mark Thomas, Mott McDonald, Michael Baker, and Hughes House. Thank you, guys. And then as far as our bronze sponsors, we have EXP, David Evans, Canon, Earth Mechanics, SPC, Trans Systems, NGO, and GMU. So I'd just like to mention that Juliet and her team are working on the next round of sponsorship. So we will be reaching out fairly soon. And thank you again for your support. Ross, you asked about our in-person events. We have a major one coming up in November. That will be at the Hangar 21 at the Fullerton Airport. We're expecting about 200 people. There will be a career fair. So if your company is interested in hosting a booth and meeting our local students from the 3 student chapters and the 3 schools, would be happy to have you over. We would be glad to have the society president, Dennis Truax, who will be the keynote speaker for the event. So cannot wait to see everyone in person at the event, and look forward to seeing you all. And since we're talking about active transportation, and it's right before we're all ate a lot at Thanksgiving, there's a way to get out and meet with our sustainability committee. They are organizing a bike ride on the Santiago Creek. And our next large in-person event will be our awards night. We have not pinpointed a date yet, but it will be in February or March 2022. So reason why we bring this up is we're looking for nominations. So we're working on updating our website, and emails will go out. And if you have prestigious, notorious projects that you'd like to nominate, we'll open up the call in December this year. So with that, I'll turn it on to Niranjan, who will introduce our speakers. Niranjan?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Niranjan from DS Jones & Associate. We are an engineering firm providing geotechnical, environmental, forensic, and construction support services on public works projects for many public agencies, including OCTA, Metro, RCTC, and local cities and Caltrans. We have been in the business for nearly 30 years. I have been with DYA over 21 years. And we are a certified DBE, MBE, SBE firm with multiple agencies. The OC Streetcar is a major project that we have been working on with OCTA through our contact with lead engineer HNTB. We have provided geotechnical, environmental design, and construction support services on this challenging and exciting project since late 2015. So we have been privileged to be involved from the beginning of the project. I won't go into the details of the project, as we have 4 great speakers from OCTA to provide that information. It's my honor to introduce our speakers today: Ross Liu, Kelly Hart, Cleve Cleveland, and Teresa Olive. Ross Liu. Ross Liu is a senior program manager with highway program at OCTA. Ross Liu joined OCTA 9 years ago and responsible for overseeing the construction of the OC Streetcar and delivering freeway projects. In recent years, Ross also delivered the construction of OC Bridge grade separation program that was budgeted $666 million. Ross is a graduate of UCI and has 31 years of management and project delivery experience in the transportation industry. He has been in the lead role on multiple complex projects in various phases of the project implementation, from planning through construction, working in partnership with many public agencies. Kelly Hart. Kelly Hart is a deputy project manager for OC Streetcar. She is responsible for assisting in the delivery of the project, including construction, vehicle manufacturing, operation, and Federal Transit Administration coordination. Having been at OCTA over 16 years, she has served in various management positions within the government relations, planning, capital program, and operations. Prior to OCTA, she served as a staff to multiple elected officials at the local, regional, and national level of government. Kelly holds a bachelor's in political science from UCLA and a master's in business administration from UCI. Cleve Cleveland. Cleve is a transit professional over 40 years of transit experience that specializes in rail operations and maintenance, and has participated in the startup of many successful streetcar and light rail startup projects. Prior to working with OCTA, he was the Associate Director for Transit Delivery Division for the District Department of Transportation, Washington, D.C. His projects included the DC Circulator, DC Streetcar, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority's Metrobus, Metro Rails and Metro Access, Amtrak, MARC, and VRE. He was also responsible for startup of the JFK International Airport Air Train Light Rail System and the Las Vegas Monorail System. Cleve is currently tasked with OC Streetcar Project's rail operations activities that include system startup, system integration testing activities of the OC Streetcar. He is also responsible for vehicle procurement for Siemens S700 streetcar vehicle that include the vehicle build and acceptance. Teresa Oliver. Teresa has over a decade of experience leading outreach program for OCTA. She is currently working to deliver the OC Streetcar Project, the Orange County Rail Maintenance Facility Project, and the Transit Security and Operations Center. Previous experience includes outreach program implementation during the full span of the project development, including environmental, design, and construction for OCTA's OC Bridge program, a portfolio of 7 overcrossing, undercrossing projects in North Orange County. Thank you, and I will leave the podium for that.
Thank you. Teresa, if you can pull up the presentation. So while that's being uploaded, I just want to take the time to say hello to everyone. It's good to see all of you. Hope everyone's doing well. Remy, I'm glad to see that you have that upcoming event at Hangar 21. My daughter recently had a homecoming there and she loved it. So you definitely have her approval of that. And congratulations to you, Juliet, for the recognition, well deserved. So this OC Streetcar project is a very large, complex project, and I thank you, ASCE, for allowing OCTA to present it. It's because of the challenge and complexity, I have a team of experts assisting me with this presentation. They will touch base with you in regards to not only construction, but vehicles, outreach, and FTA coordination. Next slide. Okay, so before we dive into the meat of it, I just think it's important for you to understand how this project came about, which we call Project ASCE. And with that, I'm going to let Kelly share with you some background.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Kelly Hart, Deputy Project Manager. We always like to say before, in order to know where we're going, it's really good to know where we have been. So I know a lot of you may have worked on the project or be familiar with the project, but wanted to remind folks kind of how we got here. And that was back in 2008, actually. Can't believe it's been that long. We did an initial transit needs assessment with all 34 cities in Orange County participated. And out of that program, the city of Santa Ana, in partnership with the city of Garden Grove, came forward with what at the time we deemed a fixed guideway concept. It was a very well thought out, locally based planning process. And I think that approach and that model has served the project very well, because the two cities were the ones that identified the alignment. We often get that question is, how did we decide this alignment? How did we decide the stops? And that was really done at the local level. And the city, again, they were the lead on doing the environmental clearance. OCTA, that was my role at the time, served in an oversight capacity. But again, they were the leads at the time. What really kind of catapulted this planning process into really forming a true project is in 2006, when Measure M2 was passed, and that provided a significant investment, over $1 billion of Project S funds, to fund projects like this that would provide a first and last mile connection to the Metrolink corridor. At the time, we were making a lot of investment into the Metrolink corridor and providing additional service. And so this type of fixed guideway, or streetcar concept, as it was later approved, provided that last mile connection to our backbone commuter rail line. So you see on the screen there a couple of our key kind of purpose statements. I think the first one is always key, and that's to improve the connectivity to Metrolink, so that we can provide more access to employment centers and and residential and commercial destinations, providing more mobility options. A great one is improving accessibility for transit-dependent residents, and relieving a lot of the roadway congestion along some of those downtown Santa Ana and Garden Grove streets. So a great story as to how we got to this place.
Next slide. So as Kelly mentioned, the project is primarily in the city of Santa Ana, which has been very supportive of OCTA and this project. And there's a vast community within Santa Ana, and I'm going to have Teresa share with you the outlay of those community.
Thank you, Ross. So again, we go the gamut from local residential neighborhoods into the busy downtown area, and then the alignment transitions over to the PE right-of-way that OCTA has owned for several years. You see many of these infill projects. The city, in conjunction with working on the environmental process, made a change in their transit zoning code in 2010 that also includes about 450 acres within our project area. And that code change provides for support for transit supportive pedestrian oriented development framework that facilitates new infill projects in existing neighborhoods, the reuse of existing buildings, and mixed use development. OCTA, when we assumed the lead agency in the design and delivery in 2014, and that was because we have a lot of experience as a federal grantee and delivery of these large scale capital projects. So this just shows several of the major developments underway in the city of Santa Ana along our alignment. Many of them are mixed use and include about the addition of almost 1,500 residential units and more than 50,000 square feet of commercial space. The Legacy project, which is down here on Santa Ana Boulevard between French and Spurgeon, is a recipient of $25 million in affordable housing and sustainable communities funding from the State Strategic Growth Council. It includes 93 affordable housing units, and 33 of those are permanent supportive housing for individuals experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. So you can see that in a couple of years, when our project comes online and several of these projects are completed, the downtown of Santa Ana and surrounding areas will look very different.
So for this project overview here, I'll give you some of the highlights of the project. We'll start with the vicinity map, and I'm going to orientate you on where this project's located. And we'll start on the right-hand side of that exhibit, or the east end. So at the top right corner, Teresa, if you can point to, we have the Interstate 5, and where the Interstate 5 and Santa Ana Boulevard is, we have the Santa Ana Regional Transportation Center right there, or SARTIC. And that's really the start of where the streetcar first station is going to be. The red line represents the alignment of the streetcar project, and the circles represent the various station stops along the way. So starting at the east end at the Santa Ana station right there, proceeding west, we're going to be heading towards down Santa Ana Boulevard, all the way towards the PE right-of-way. And the PE right-of-way segment is shown in green there, and that's within the property that's owned by OCTA. Near the downtown area, you'll notice that there are two red alignments. So the top alignment is on Santa Ana Boulevard, and at that location there, the trains will run only westbound. And then the eastbound train is shown in a second red alignment down below, and that is the eastbound alignment going through 4th Street, the downtown area. And then beyond to the west and east of there, that's where they reconnect. And so you have two directional tracks. The total length of the project is about 4.15 miles, but we have about 8.3 of track miles. 10 station stops is noted in the top left side here. And we're going to be procuring 8 vehicles for this project. The budget for this is currently at about $423 million is approved by our board. Oh, I see a a green block on the screen.
I'm not sure where that came from, sorry.
Okay, no worries. We can somehow turn that off.
I'm doing my best.
Thanks, Teresa.
I'm going to stop sharing and get out and
okay.
There we go. Again, I apologize for the technical
No, no worries. And that's why I'm looking so forward to getting back in person,
No, let's see.
not having to deal with technical difficulties or the mute button. So we can go back to the previous slide, Teresa.
Yep, just a second.
Yep.
Sorry, again, not sure.
Oh, that's okay. So I think I left off, it's about, oops.
Sorry, this is. Okay. How did we, somehow we've gotten out of order here.
Okay. I'm on this.
Okay, hang on one second.
Okay, thank you. So currently our budget for this project, which includes the design, the planning, environmental, construction, project management, is $423.44 million. Our current forecast right now to have the revenue service date in which the trains will be running open to the public to use is October 6th of 2023. Design is done, as you know, it's in construction right now. We're about 55% in terms of construction completion in regards to what the contractor has submitted in terms of his pay applications. We'll go into the next slide. Okay, here's how the project's organized. The image on the left, I'm not going to go into details for every element, but basically just to point out, it is a large team that's needed to manage this project. Some of the key players on this project are highlighted to the right side. We have HDRs, our program manager doing the design and also construction. We have HNTB as the lead designer, along with all the sub-consultants, including DS Yorman, FPL, and others. Walsh is our main contractor. We're about a little over 2 years into this construction. We have PGH Wong as the construction manager. And then I just want to reiterate, HDR as being our program manager manages the overall construction, coordinating with Walsh and also PGH Wong. An important player on this is Siemens, who is the main vehicle manufacturer, and Cleve will go into a little more detail on that in a little bit. We also have Herzog, who will be our operation and maintenance contractor once this project is up and running. Next slide. So as I'm gonna go into the construction, I want to share with you the two main features for this project. We'll start with the blue box on the left side. And this is where the alignment goes from Garden Grove at the top left down towards Santa Ana. And within this segment here, the streetcar is within the Pacific Electric right-of-way, which is owned by OCTA. The uniqueness of this is that the tracks are on ballast, which is the typical rail tracks. And then when it crosses onto bridges, it's a direct fixation track. There are a couple of key elements associated with with that segment, including bridges and also at-grade crossing. On the right side, shown in a salmon color, is where the streetcar transition from the ballast track onto street running. In other words, the track's embedded within the street and it's flush, so running with the streetcar is a lane that the vehicles can also use. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. We'll start with segment one, which is in a PE right away on the west end. So as I noted, there are several bridges associated with this segment here. We have the Westminster Bridge that crosses over Westminster. We have the Santa Ana River Bridge. We also have the large maintenance and storage facility. We have two at-grade crossings at Fairview and 5th Street. And we also have several stations along the way. Next slide. Here's a view of the Westminster Bridge that crosses over Westminster. For the most part, the bridge is done. The foundation, superstructure, substructures are done. We're working on the surface part right now, in which we're going to put in direct fixation tracks and all of the safety elements in terms of barrier, railing, and so forth for this project. So the left shows, for most part, the significant completion of the bridge, and the image on the right shows the top of the bridge, which is to be completed with the rails. Next slide. Here's a view of the Santa Ana River Bridge. It's a 3-span bridge. The new bridge is in the foreground, The old railroad bridge is in the background, and it's a historic bridge that we are retaining. We're looking at ways in which we can use the historic bridge and possibly as a bike route for our future planning active transportation improvements. This bridge, again, similar to Westminster, is significantly completed. What's remaining is the top half of the bridge in terms of putting, again, the tracks on it. Next slide. As I noted previously, we do have several stations in this area. There's not much to show since we're at the beginning part of it. We do have stations at Fairview and Raitt, and also at Westminster. The at-grade crossings is shown on the left side here. We do have several where we have the standard at-grade crossing that has crossing arms coming down when the streetcar approaches for safety and all the signalization associated with that. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of how the station will look like when it's completed, here's a rendering that we can share with you. The rendering on the right side shows the completion as the streetcar is approaching that station. The image on the left shows all the various elements of the station. Starting at the top, we have a canopy with a decorative glass roofing. We have all the amenities associated with the station, including the ticket vending machine, a map, security, lighting. So all the typical things that you would generally see at a platform station. Next slide. So here, I'm going to hand off to Cleve to share with you the large maintenance and storage facility that we have.
Oh, yes. And you know what? This is a great picture. It's construction, and we'll have a walk through in a little bit. But the facility is pretty nice. It's going to have 4 bays. It's going to have a wheel trilling pit. We'll actually put a wheel mill there rather than a lathe for turning the wheels on the vehicle. There's been a couple of things that why we were out there working on the project, and we had to we had an archaeological discovery while we were out there, and we have just recovered from that relatively recently. We're working on the west half of the MSF building, the floor slabs and the car wash and the foundation, and the new utility services are all ongoing as it stands right now. What you can see mostly happening here is we're doing the wet utilities. And as soon as we get done with that, we'll come back and start pouring concrete on the other side. Next slide. So this is a walkthrough of the MSF. And when I was playing with this last week, it was a little slow, but it looks like it's working a little bit better. Our entrance to the MSF is off 5th Street, it's West 5th Street. So you'll come in through these gates. If you're driving, there'll be a man gate to the left of that as we come through. This is the parking area for the employees and for deliveries. To the left here will be the main doors to enter the building. And inside that will be our reception area. There's several offices located on the 1st and 2nd floor, most of them being on the 2nd floor. As you come through the entrance, you'll go directly into the maintenance area. And again, I had stated we have 4 bays. So the first 2 bays that you're looking at right now, these are pit areas. So we'll be able to work underneath the vehicle, do everything we need to do. And then we have a mezzanine area. And these stairs, right to the right, will take you upstairs to the mezzanine area. We have 2 bridge cranes that you'll see when we get up to the top. So we can lift everything off of the platforms upstairs here. As we go through the gates to the right, we have the storage for the equipment, and we also have the safety gates, and we'll be able to raise and lower everything we need to get on top of the car in these 2 areas. We'll also have shore power to steer up the vehicle when we're not on 750. As we come back down the stairs, you'll see we have bifold doors throughout the building, which is really nice. They beat the roll-up doors by a considerable amount. This is the wheel trilling pit. We talked a little bit about this. This is actually going to be a mill. And it has a short pit here with 2 turntables. So to the left, you see another set of tracks. That's for our truck rebuild area. And then to the right is the 4th bay. And we can put maintenance away vehicles in this area. We can put a train in this if we want to. To the left are the portable lifts. So we'll actually lift the train up to change the trucks out on the vehicle. And we use portable lifts so we can position the train wherever we want it. And as we turn back and we start heading west again, we're going out to the parking area. And we also have storage out here for additional trains. So we have 8 to start. We can bring in 7 more trains in addition to this for future building. We have an in and out car wash, so it washes on the way in and it rinses on the way out. We also have blowers on it so they don't track us. They come out of the car wash. As you see directly back here, we're looking at a traction power substation. This is traction power substation number 2, so 1 megawatt station. And we also have a wide track, so we can turn the vehicles around, so we can really get some constant wheel wear on this. We don't like just running them in one direction all the time. So this is kind of a quick look around what this facility is going to look like. It's going to be about a little better than 50,000 square feet when we get done with this. And we're really excited about, the expansion potential for this building.
Thanks, Cleve. So the previous photo of the MSF, you'll just see for the most part, the foundation was already put in. We're pretty excited for the upcoming months when we're going to start doing steel girder erection. So we're going to start seeing the facility itself start rising out of the ground. So we're really excited for that. Moving on to construction within segments 2 through 5. Now, this is where we transition from the ballast tracks onto the street running track, and which is embedded within the pavement itself. As you can see, it's flush within the pavement. There's also a lane that the vehicles can also use when the streetcar is not occupying that track. On the image on the left, I just want to orientate everyone in regards to the way the segments are noted. Segment 2 is between Raitt and Bristol. For those that are familiar with the Santa Ana area. Segment 3 is where we have the tracks running westbound at the top half there. Segment 4, which aligns with 4th Street, is where the tracks running eastbound. And then when the track comes together into segment 5, that leads you to the SARTIC. Okay, next slide. So I just want to share with you some of the track installation that occur over this past summer. Due to the extreme change in temperature in terms of cool nights, really hot days, what we had to do was start the track pour very early in the night. So we usually start work around 2 a.m. as shown on the left photo there. It's in a pitch dark and we have the lights. And so that's where the team, Walsh's team, would set up the track, make sure it's positioned, survey, and everything's on precise alignment. For the upcoming pour, which generally occur around 6 o'clock. So a long lead time just to set up the tracks before the pour. So the image on the right there shows the pour occurring, and the image on the left shows as the trimming off the surface. And then the image on the lower right shows pretty much the finished product. As you can see, there are numerous conduits in our track bed for communication, electrical, signalization. So it's a basically very condensed skeleton that comprises of the track bed. Next slide. In addition to the track bed, we also have a system installation. So the image on the right shows all the conduits as it comes out of the streetcar tracks into manholes and so forth for maintenance and operational purposes. Next slide. So just to give you some images of what's going on, these images, the track for the most part is already completed. So these images are several months old, but I just want to show you generally how it looks like. So the image on the left here is basically a view if you're facing east from Raitt Street to Bristol. The track on the left side is the westbound track, and we completed that pretty much in spring of this year. We started the work in the eastbound track, which is the track that's on the right side. You can see it's been partially poured and again, have already been poured, but this image here shows how it looks like during the summertime. Additional images of the work. So a Bristol intersection is a major street intersection. We did a week closure to do the work across that major intersection. This shows the amount of effort that goes into that in terms of having the track set, survey, prep for the pour through the Bristol intersection. Next slide. As you're proceeding east from Bristol, what we want to highlight here is the amount of coordination associated with this work. So in a previous photo from Raitt to Bristol, that section, Teresa, you can just go back to that. I guess I forgot to share the amount of coordination that's needed. Maybe one more slide. So I just want to pause here. I want to give Teresa an opportunity to share with her the amount of coordination that was needed through this segment here, because this is primarily due to residential.
So you can see how close we are to people's homes, and you know, for months on end, they had to kind of take a ramp down into the area when the track bed was being excavated. We did a lot of knocking on doors and providing kind of one-on-one conversations, in addition to having some virtual meetings with the community. But the people out there have been great, and they've been very patient with us.
Yes. Thanks, Teresa. So for this image here, I just want to show you how the coordination expand to beyond the residents. So within this location here between Flower and Shelton, there's a large law enforcement facility here. The image on the right there shows the men's jail. You also have the women's jail there, as well as the Orange County Sheriff Department headquarters is here, along with the coroner's office. So it's extremely important that we maintain access to these facilities 24/7. It cannot be blocked at all. The image on the left here shows, as you're facing west, the excavation work in the center. To the left of that image, I know it's hard to see, is where we diverted access for the public use. The image on the right there shows a dedicated access lane only for law enforcement. That dedicated access lane is also shown in an image on the right side there as you're facing west. There was a lot of coordination needed for this, and so I'll have Teresa share with her some of the things that we have to do.
So yeah, so we started talking with the Sheriff's Department during the design, so to have a clear understanding of what their operations look like and what we had to accommodate during construction. So this is an exhibit that actually the Sheriff's Department assisted me in developing, shows all of their locations and facilities, activities on the north side, and then the two buildings that you see down in the lower right, the 320 and 300. One of them houses the district attorney's office, and the other one has administrative offices for the Sheriff's Department.
So this exhibit here just highlights again the access for the law enforcement and also where the public should use. So really, Teresa plays a very important role. She always has to be almost 2 steps ahead of construction in terms of messaging to the upcoming affected businesses, local agencies, and also residents. So as we're continuing east, now we're getting into, where all the business center is. Here's some view of the recent track installation as you're facing east from Broadway and also at Main Street. Another key facility that we had to closely coordinate is several county buildings over here. We also have the Hall of Administration where the 5 Board of Supervisors have the office. And so maintaining access there is a must for them. Next slide.
So this just shows again at the Hall of Administration, I call that one of our sensitive receptors, because the 5 Board of Supervisors also sit on our board of directors. And so if anything goes wrong here, Daryl gets a call right away. So again, we're doing our best to make sure that we keep all of their driveways open, as well as the driveways on the south side of the alignment here, to make sure that visitors to their area can get in and out of the area safely.
Right. And the image on the left is just to highlight some of the materials that we have to develop that is distributed among all the businesses, the agencies, and also the public. So continuing east here, I think this is a pretty cool photo that I want to share. The image on the right here shows the really tight radius. It's the 20-meter radius, and Cleve can expand on that, on how the vehicle would traverse that. But this is located right here, just east of French Street. And in the far background, this is a cool image of the 4th Street and the downtown area with all the restaurants and shops and so forth. And the streetcar is going to continue through 4th Street in the beginning of the year. Right now, we're heading towards a moratorium that we have established with the city. We don't want to disrupt any businesses there during the holidays. So the moratorium starts pretty much the day before Thanksgiving, all the way through New Year's. So we want to avoid that area for any construction. The image on the left just shows the remaining piece that had to be poured on this curve.
So I just want to remind everybody of the map that we saw before with all the economic development locations. This area over here is the current Northgate Market, and that area is also slated for redevelopment with a tall mixed use with commercial on the first floor and residential buildings on the upper floors.
And it's all right. I'll just piggyback on that. I think it's interesting that the curves they were just showing you in that last picture, and Ross alluded to that the 20-meter curves. This is the tightest radius that they've ever done for a Siemens S70 or S700 vehicle. So we're doing a lot of testing with these with Siemens out at the Siemens facility in Sacramento, where we put the vehicle on a turntable and we turn it we just overturn it just I think by 2 degrees to make sure that it'll fit on our track. So there's a lot of modification that actually had to happen to this vehicle in order to make it work for us. But Siemens has been extra diligent to make sure that we get a vehicle that will work well on our systems. And if I said there's 3, there's 1 out on the embedded track portion there in Santa Ana, and then there's 2 in the yard. So we hit these tight radiuses a couple of times. So let's talk a little bit about the vehicle. It's a Siemens S700 streetcar. They're produced in Sacramento, California. Not a lot of difference between this and the 70. The biggest is the 70 had forward-facing seats, and inside the S700, the seats in the C car, they face each other. So there's an A car and a B car. Those are the 2 cars on the end, and the middle car is always the C car. So they've done a little bit of upgrading in that. They widened it out just a little bit to make sure that there's good access in there. The key features of this one is it'll hold 211 folks at AW3. So our max service speed is 44 miles an hour. The car is certainly capable of going faster than that to meet the crash worthiness of the CPUC. That's where we'll be regulated at 44 miles an hour. It's 70% low floor. It has boarding through 8 sets of double doors. That's 4 on each side. The difference between light rail and this is we don't run these cars in tandem. So they don't train line. They don't talk to each other. So that's about the only difference when you look at these cars. If you set them side by side, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And obviously the light rail typically doesn't run in the street like we do with the streetcar. We run our streetcars up and down the street, no dedicated right of way. It should be said that the PE right of way, Ross talked about a little bit, that's the old Pacific Electric. It's all ballasted and it's all double wire for the OCS. So that's where we have our faster speeds and we have no congestion. And that is our right of way. And so we should be the only traffic that enters that area. So we expect at least half of the system, we can make up time pretty much and keep our headways. The first 7 of the S700 streetcars, they're actually pretty near completion at this point in time. Car 8 has been assembled like the rest of them, but it hasn't gone through the testing yet. Car 8 needs to go what we call DIPMICO testing, which that's high pot testing, and it also needs to go through static and dynamic testing still. We are under negotiations with Siemens regarding the storage of the vehicles, and that's given some of these construction delays. And these pictures are kind of nice here. They'll give you an idea of what the vehicles look like out at Siemens during the testing. The center picture is them during production. You can see we kind of own the floor with just our 8 vehicles. So all of them are in there at the same time going to production. And then the picture on the right is actually one of our streetcars during dynamic testing out on the test track. Next slide. So these are really recent pictures and not a lot of folks have seen these yet. So things that are unique to our car, if you look at that center picture, is that energy absorbing bumper. We've done quite a bit of testing with this. We went out to Indiana. Our car and Phoenix are the only ones who have energy absorbing bumpers. It's pretty unique. I think that Siemens will see a lot of folks wanting this after after these come out. Phoenix is running these right now. They're putting the bumpers on right now. They've been doing testing commission without these. Because we have extra time, we're making sure that they're installed on our cars before we receive them. Top left is one of our cars in production. Bottom left is the cars that are production waiting to go back in for final assembly. Remember, there's just a little more final detail they need to do on these vehicles. They're moving some of the seat installations around, the bosses they put down for the mounting. They weren't exactly the right place, so they're doing a modification on those. Top right is our car actually in dynamic testing. You can see that we're out there doing the testing. We have an emergency battery drive, and for what it's worth, we're the only S700 vehicle that has an emergency battery drive. So there is off-wire technology, but that's a whole different use than what we're trying to do, which is to make sure we can take our vehicle out of an intersection should we run into an emergency, such as the power goes out or something along those lines. So we have a couple of different ways to get that out. And then the bottom right is just one of our vehicles in production before it gets the trucks on it. Next slide. This is a little bit about the interior. Sorry about, you can't see the floors, but we talked about the C car and the way those seats face each other. And this really is what makes it an S700. Other than that, like I said, there's not a lot of difference. You can see some of the, to the picture on the right, you can see some of the double doors standing off into the C car. The really nice thing about this is we've taken a lot of effort to make sure that this vehicle is bicycle friendly. So we have the only car that Siemens makes, and with a what they call a 4P or 4-passenger flip seat. So for extra large mobility devices or for bicycles, you can not only put them on the bicycle racks that we have in here, but you can also park them in those areas when they're not occupied by, like I say, a mobility device or maybe a bicycle. So we've really made this commuter friendly, user friendly, not only again for just passengers, but for the bicycle community at large. Next picture.
So I think you saw through the photographs that we go through, we run the gamut of audiences that we need to do outreach for. All of our forward-facing pieces are bilingual, and we do have some general information pieces that are trilingual, since part of our route goes into Garden Grove, which has a large Vietnamese population. In addition to the typical outreach that you would see of construction notices, we've also partnered with our downtown business associations. We've provided funding for them to do their own kind of marketing support to help make sure that they're bringing people back into the downtown. And we also have an Eat Shop Play program, which is we provide social media and marketing support to the businesses individually. And it's a free program that businesses can sign up for through OCTA. Here's just information. If you want to find pictures, find out what's going on with the project, you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And you can always email us at ocstreetcar@octa.com. And before I go on, I just want to make sure that we give a shout out to STV. They were the design lead on the MSF part of the project.
All right, so while nowhere near as exciting as some of the pictures that Ross and Teresa and Cleve shared, we did want to mention what a critical part of the FTA coordination is in delivering this project and this program. Teresa mentioned at the onset in terms of FTA funding, this is a federally funded capital investment grant project. We were successful in 2018 in getting what's called a full funding grant agreement, which was the first time that Orange County had received that type of funding, which was a very exciting milestone. Great news for the transit industry in Orange County, but it comes with it an extensive amount of oversight from FTA on our project. All of us, regardless of the discipline that we're in this on this project, work a lot to ensure that FTA is getting the information that they need on the project on a very regular basis. We meet with them monthly for 2 hours to go over project status. We submit a monthly report on the status of the project. Again, very extensive oversight and a lot of effort, but it is very exciting and a good use of local dollars that we were able to leverage to get these federal fundings. So that's the FTA coordination piece of the project.
I can't stress enough the amount of effort that needs to go into coordinating with FTA. So I'm really grateful that Kelly is leading that effort. And as I highlighted earlier, this is a very complex project, probably the most complex I've ever managed in my 31-year career. So that's why it's great to have Teresa taking care of the outreach and all the community, and also Cleve leading the effort on the MSF, the vehicles, and also office operation and maintenance. So with that, we're available for questions and answer.
I don't
Yeah, I've
see
got-
any. Oh, Tom, go ahead.
I've got 3 real quick questions. I didn't see any pictures. I'm assuming that there had to have been some substantial relocation of existing utilities in the streets.
Yes, we didn't have any photos of that because most of it's already been done and in the ground and covered with pavement. But yes, early on during the design phase, there were extensive utility relocation coordinated with all the utility companies. Pretty much every utility company you could think of, we coordinated with them. For the most part, all those advanced utility relocations have been completed.
And the second question, is this typical to put those conduits between the tracks? Where accessibility, if something happens in the future, you end up taking the line down?
You know what? I know Cleve has extensive experience working on streetcars in the East Coast and Tucson and other areas. So Cleve, do you mind answering that question?
Yeah, really, it's not. So there was a couple of drivers on that. One was, it seems like every time we stuck a shovel in the ground, we dug up something we don't want to see, right? And so to widen that out and to put it along the side like they typically do, we feed from the bottom. We opted to go ahead and put them in the center and keep all of our equipment nice and tight within the vehicle, within the right of way for the vehicle. So no, it's not typical, but it works.
Okay. And then the last question, no dedicated right of way. So this basically the cars will be driving down in the same area where the trains are, the streetcar is.
That is correct. For the tracks that are running within the city street, the only dedicated right of way is in the segment 1 that I mentioned, that's within the OCTA owned PE right of way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's good, right? So we'll use the same traffic signals that the cars use. So there's no special, we will have preemption, or, we'll have preemption in there. So we'll be able to coordinate with the lights, but other than that, it's what everybody else is doing.
Thank you.
Ross, there's a question in the chat box from Kelsey. She's asking, you mentioned an archaeological find on the projects. Have there been any other interesting finds under those old streets in Santa Ana?
Any interesting, I think,
Finds?
in terms of things that we may have unearthed during excavation, is that thing? Well,
I guess so, yeah. So
we-
besides bones?
No human remains, bones, I hope. And the reason I say that is that we have not started our full track bed excavation thus far. That will begin in this coming January. We have done some utility work within 4th Street, in which it's done within a narrow trench, and nothing interesting that's exciting to be found, which is good news. We don't want anything exciting in regards to this project. No surprises, please. So we're hoping to continue that way. Other segments beyond 4th Street to the west of there, we have encountered numerous wooden railroad ties from the old red car that used to run through this area here. I guess they left that in place for us, and now we have to deal with it. We don't anticipate finding any in the 4th Street when we start the track excavation.
Thank you. I do have a question regarding the opening of the streetcar and potential traffic control. Specifically, the local residents are not used to having a streetcar today. So what traffic control calming options have been incorporated in the design, and what outreach would be done to minimize potential accidents? I know you mentioned the energy absorption bumper, but what are the methods that you will implement in the project?
Yeah, I can start with that, and I welcome any additional input from Kelly, Teresa, and Cleve. It's important to understand that through the residential area, it is a street running track. So it is in the same lanes as vehicles. So whatever traffic control that's in place right now for the vehicles also applies for this streetcar. The streetcar also doesn't move very fast. It's slower than a vehicle. So, you know, from a pedestrian, from visuals concern, you can see a streetcar coming because it's not coming very fast at you, and it's big too. So in terms of safety, we don't see there much concerns there. The public is well aware of this project. We put extensive outreach during the design, planning and design phase, so this way they know what's coming their way. As the vehicle do approach a street intersection, it's the signals are preemptive to allow the streetcar to go through, similar to a fire truck. So I'm pretty sure it won't take long for the public to know that, and pretty much they'll probably be tailgating the streetcar just to go through the intersection.
I would just add, in addition to the street, to the project itself, we've also added 3 traffic signals, which should help with pedestrian movement and crossing. And then we will transition from the construction outreach to a safety and education program, and then, transition further into a marketing mode where we're, attracting ridership. So it's a progression that will take place as the project progresses.
Right. And those traffic signals and pretty much we're at the add grade crossings that I shared earlier in the presentation.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Teresa. Do we have any other questions?
Easy questions, which I can take on.
No? All right, well, Kelly, Teresa, Clive, Ross, thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation. I cannot wait to hope on at Streetcar and go grab a beer downtown.
Yes.
Thank you
In
very
the
much.
far future, we can plan some tour with ASCE when this significantly completed.
It's actually a wonderful idea. We'll call you back on that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
You have a
you.
good day.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ross, Kelly, Teresa, Cleve.